I woke up with some thoughts about Module 1, which is create something of value, and I wanted to share it with you. So, this is high level, these 5 keys of business, right? You've got to create something of value for people that want or need it, that they're willing to pay for, in a way that satisfies them, and in a way that brings in enough revenue and energy to make it worth your time, right? It's a pretty simple concept. It's been kind of the guiding post. It's been the guiding posts for me of the course that I've built, because I think if you're building your business, if you're in your first 10 years, if you've got fewer than 10 employees, you're probably still dialing in any one, if not 5 of those pieces. And so I want to talk to you about the first 2, because I think that's where you get started. Creating something of value for people that want or need it. The way I like to translate that is like solving a problem for people that you care about. And the first thing that comes up there is the niche. And this is where I've seen a lot of people spinning their wheels, feeling lost and confused. Like, what is my niche? Who are my people? And I want to speak to that because it's one of the places where, yeah, I found people kind of experiencing the most stress. I think one of the reasons they experience the most stress is because who your people are is what determines how many sales you have, right? And how many sales you have determines how challenging your business feels, how hopeless you feel about it, how possible it feels, how viable the product is in your eyes specifically. Because if you have something that you're like, this is awesome, but nobody wants it, or every time you offer it to somebody, there's like radio silence, it would be very normal for you to start to believe that you're bad at business, there's no hope for what you have to offer, nobody wants it. And what I have found through both working with clients and also being a part of different online communities for entrepreneurs, for online business owners, for healers or leaders that are offering a modality, whether it be coaching, acupuncture, or even like doing your taxes. All of these places hit people's insecurities and sense of self in this really unique way that I've started to kind of compile around the niche, because we think of the niche as like describing them and describing the ideal client, whoever they are, in a way that like attracts them to us. And one of the things on my journey that has been really relevant is that, well, I've done a lot of personal growth. I was like a kid that felt very uncomfortable in my skin. I didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't feel like I belonged. I moved around a bunch. I had a bunch of I was very a non-traditional girl. So people were confused with what to do with me. So I had the experience of being an outsider at a very early age and figuring out how to navigate it. Luckily, I had a coach, also known as my mother, who helped me understand what was happening, trying to make conscious choices for the stage and age that I was in, and essentially like figuring out how to navigate awkward social scenes. Now, what I've realized later, I just turned 40, is that many kids were going through that same experience. They were feeling like they didn't belong, they felt outside and awkward in their body. And I think a lot of that has to do with developmental processes and also the way that public school systems kind of filter people in. Um, but a lot of people were confused about who they were and how they wanted to be in the world, and they were navigating all this social pressure to be a certain way, to behave a certain way, to act, to perform, to appease, to please other people. And so that upbringing would very naturally lead anyone, including myself, including you, if you had that experience, to be confused about who you are. And if you're 40, 50, 80, and you're showing up to the online business scene struggling to identify other people and to attract them, it might simply be because you're still figuring out who you are. And if you are still figuring out who you are, that's okay. That's normal. That's to be expected. That's kind of the purpose of life, and so some might say, is to figure out who you are. And so this is what I've actually found to be quite empowering about the niching process, or the process of exploring who your ideal client is, experimenting with who you love working with, reflecting on what kind of magic your modality brings to the scene. not explicitly or exclusively as a way to attract people or to identify who they are, but also as a path of self-development and self-growth and self-identity. And that's what's so freaking cool about this work is I've found, is I've actually gotten to refine myself in the process in a way that feels really fucking authentic, really genuine, like very similar to those nonviolent communication retreats that I went to in my 20s, where I was like figuring out how to speak from my heart and process some of the pain and suffering that was in my body. It's still here, it's still there, it's still like part of the process. And I think that is what is often missing from the niching process or the niching workshops, where people are like, write about them, like tell me about your client avatar. And I'm like, hold on a second, do that, great activity. But I want to also invite you to tell me about you and who you are. Because I do think the more you know yourself, the easier it is to know your client, the easier it is to articulate them. So if you're doing a bunch of different niching activities about them, take a moment and see if you can balance it out with a few niching activities about you. And this is why I think that marketing is a beautiful process. This is like a healing modality. This is like a beautiful training for who you are and how you want to be in the world in a way that allows you not just to connect with other people, which I do think is the kind of really rewarding part of this, but because you get to connect with you. You get to bring you into the scene, not just you today, you in the past, you in the future, like all those pieces get to be a part of it. And some of the ways that I have found that myself is through, developing my introduction, my storytelling about where I've been on this journey. And that has helped me connect with the people that are on their journey. That's one of the ways. I mean, there's been a ton of different pieces along the way. There've been frustrating moments and there've been like really euphoric aha moments, because I've gotten to see myself in this work, and I hope that you get to see yourself too.